Welcome to Monkey Chatter. This is Amy, and as always, I'm here with Lara and Michelle. But I'm also super excited to have my personal running coach. Well, she's not just mine, she works with lots of other people too. Jaci Wilson on with us today. And we're really excited to have her here. As I was making some notes for this, I was like, if I list everything about Jaci, the entire 45 minutes will just be like all of her accomplishments and certifications and all of that. So I just made a note of a few of them, but you can check out her website at jaciwilsonruns.com and also on social and stuff and see her entire list of so many things. So she is a Roadrunner Club of America certified run coach, a USCO run coach, an 80/20 endurance certified run coach, a VDOT run coach. Is there a certification that you don't have? A certified holistic nutrition coach, also a running coach for the Human Powered Health and the Minnesota Run Series. She's run a bazillion races, from 5Ks to just completing her first ultra a little few weeks ago, where she took first place female and actually got the female course record by like 11 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she makes me feel like a total slacker. But we wanted to have her on not only to talk about running, but Jaci does a ton of other stuff. Her kind of thing is all the things. So it's not just about running it. It's your nutrition, it's your strength training, it's your sleep, it's your mental health, all of that. And Jaci has a bit of a unique background in that she has a master's in accounting and has since left that world, kind of. And so we want to talk to her a little bit about the burnout and all of that as well that she experienced in the corporate world, which encouraged her to move into run coaching. So that was a really long introduction. So without further ado, Jaci, do you want to just tell us, so take us back to your accounting days and how you ended up going from accounting to run coaching.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder how that happened too. Um, I think like for me, I love routine. I love having a definitive answer and I like problem solving. So that's where accounting came into play. Unfortunately, the path that I took in accounting had to do with a lot of subjective measures. And I basically helped business owners sell their businesses and find those buyers, and assign a correct value to their company, which again, owners think that they're worth a lot more and the sellers think that the buyers think that they're not worth that much. So that's where it kind of tugged at my heart to say, like, I don't know if this is quite for me. I loved the people that I worked with, and I really did like the accounting and the work that I was doing. But there were 4 people in our department, and I was completely overworked. All of us were. And I just, with all of the household things and just trying to have a life, I couldn't manage it all. And I just got to that point of being like, okay, like, what do I do? And the answer that I got from everyone was like, just push through, like, just do it. Like, this is what you have to do. And I don't work that way. If someone tells me to do something, I'm going to do the opposite. Um, so I think that was hard for me, was being told, like, you just have to do it. Um, and that's where I kind of, at that same time, I had found my love for running. I had been doing a lot with nutrition and strength training before, and I had ran a few races, but that was my stress reliever. And I also had moved back home, gotten married, and we have a running group in my hometown. So that's where I started running with the group and just found this outlet away from work. And I didn't think about work at all. So that was I was also studying for the CPA exam at the same time. So that was my 1 hour a day where I was not working or studying. I got like 4 hours of sleep, which at the time I felt amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm doing this. But hindsight is always 2020. I understand now how I was able to do that and why I was able to do that. And I cannot do that anymore. I can't even make it on like 6 hours of sleep. So I think that's the hardest part, is not realizing where you're at in that exact moment. And I had never heard about burnout and everything. So I had no idea what it was and why I was feeling like I was feeling. But I just got to a point where I started thinking about like, okay, if I'm not going to do transaction consulting, what am I going to do? And that's where my passion for running came into play. And that's kind of where I started dabbling with coaching and trying to figure out, like, is this something that I could actually do? My husband said, no, that's not a job.
You proved him wrong, huh?
He literally said that it's not a job. But it literally got to the point where my boss said, okay, like, either you're going to work 90 hours a week over this probation period, or we got to figure something else out. And when I had to sign that contract, I was like, well, there's no way that I'm going to do this, because there's no way that I can do this. I'm already literally killing myself over this process. And again, it was other people saying like, this is what you have to do. And I'm like, well, I'm literally waking up at 3 a.m., 2 a.m. to study, maybe getting a run in. I was also told not to run, not to lift, because I need to study and work. And it just got to be too much. So I was like, this is enough. I can't do this anymore. And so the transition was kind of forced, but I had already been coaching and I kind of knew exactly what I wanted to do. So the transition was hard, but easy at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So was it just kind of one day you were like, all right, that's it, done, like a black and white start stop date, or was it a little bit of a gradual?
No. I probably started thinking about it in February, and it wasn't until that summer where it was like, gosh, I really cannot do this anymore. And then later that fall, I was done.
Yeah. So I know you've talked about this a little bit, and I know you talk about this on your social, and certainly we've had conversations, but like, if you don't mind sharing as much as you're comfortable with, like, what did burnout look like for you?
Oh gosh, where do I start? I think it first started when I recognized it was, well, I didn't know what it was at the time.
Mhm.
I literally like could not do anything. Like, sat at my computer, looked at a spreadsheet of these companies that I was supposed to be analyzing, and I literally could not do anything. But no one talked about burnout, so I had no idea what it was or that's actually what I was feeling. So it's kind of like a withdrawal from activities, a withdrawal from people, interactions. At one point of the whole cycle over that year, I was like all in on like everything. So there's actually like 12 stages of burnout, and looking back, I can see every single stage that I was in. But it got to be to the point of like physical symptoms of food sensitivities popping up, weight gain, um, waking up every single morning at 2 a.m., even if I wasn't trying to. Like, I was wide awake. There were a lot of physical symptoms, and then the depression hit. And then it was like, okay, I gotta figure this out because there's something that is literally wrong. Because at that time I was marathon training. Um, I ate like all whole foods, and there was nothing that I had changed in my physical activity or my nutrition or anything that would indicate like, okay, I gained 35 pounds in a month. Like there was just, it's like insane to even think about that. But that's what happened. So that's when I really started to be like, okay, like something is actually wrong and I need to figure this out.
And what did you find kind of helped you through that then? Because obviously you've come out on the other side now. So
Yeah.
any advice that you have for people?
The number one piece of advice that I have is you have to take a step back and you have to try to, it's hard because you don't know that you're going through it, but you have to rest, and rest is one of the most beneficial things that you can do, I think, for anything. um but especially if you are going through burnout, if you're feeling like not motivated, if you're like, I don't want to do this stuff, if you have like resentment or anger towards other people and you have no idea why, um like lack of desire to do your work or activities that you love to do, um, rest always helps. Like even if you're not burnt out, and I think it's beneficial just to unplug for a day, get outside, do something that you love, other than like your main focus for the majority of your day.
Uh, Michelle, Lara, do you guys have anything? I know this is a topic that's near and dear to Michelle's heart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine too.
So,
So go, yeah, both of us, I think, are big fans of rest. And I
It's
mean, I
so,
think it's,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead,
It's
Michelle.
so, I think it's so, um, trying to get real rest. Like, I think sometimes when people hear that word, it's hard to really understand, what does that mean exactly, rest, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just like sleep more or take a nap, right? Like that
Right.
can be part of it,
Mhm.
but I like how you talked about unplugging and doing something, but not sort of your thing, right? So like I can imagine in your world just adding in more running at that point might not have been what you were referring to. So
Mhm.
what did you do something instead of run when you were trying to build in rest?
At that time, I was not trying to build and rest because I was told you need to work, you need to study, and you need to sleep.
Hmm.
That's like, I was told by multiple people that's what you need to do. Like, you should not run, you should not lift. And
Hmm.
that was like, I have to have like just a little bit for my sanity, or the little bit that I could have.
Hmm.
So although like I was told not to, I still did.
Still ran.
Was
Yeah.
I dumb about it? Yes.
Well,
But
say more about that. Like, what was dumb? Like, cancel that. But what do you think was dumb about the way you did it? How would you have done it differently if you sort of knew then what you know now?
I would have slept instead of running. I would have slept instead of waking up at 1 a.m. to go for a run.
Mhm.
Mm,
Um, I would have, if I was going to go for a run, I would have ran in the daylight instead of in the middle of the night when no one else knew that I was running. Like I
mm,
literally hit it because I was told not to. Um, so I
wow.
think like that's the one thing is like now I prioritize sleep no matter what. It doesn't matter like if like there's rarely an occurrence right now where I will sacrifice sleep. 8 hours is my minimum, and that's not something that I would ever do before. So I think sleep helps everything. And sometimes that's just a hard lesson that people have to learn, is how beneficial it is and how detrimental it can be to literally every aspect of your life if you sacrifice it. So sleep would be the one thing. The second thing that I would do is just like, even if it's 5 minutes of your day, just stop and just breathe. Like, go outside, sit on the couch and do nothing, pet your dog, just like literally just don't do anything. Don't think about anything, just be. And I think that's also extremely beneficial, just to kind of reset your mind and literally breathe so that you can continue on with your day.
Yeah. Wow, that's
Yeah.
we did a couple of podcasts on sleep. We all what was the Matthew
Yeah. Why we
Walker's book?
sleep.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that was probably one of the scariest things that we had ever
Yeah.
had, when you start to get a feel for how truly impactful that is on your entire well-being, right?
Yep.
Just, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's really sort of reinforcing to hear you say that. And I totally, I definitely went through a period of real burnout. And when you were talking about like looking at your computer screen and not being able, really, you just couldn't make any sense, right? Like you just can't do anything. You're paralyzed. And that is just, especially if you're, as you obviously are, someone who's sort of an achiever, you do things, you get them done, tick the boxes, finish the task. And I know for me, that was just one of the most difficult things I've ever been through, to all of a sudden not be able to do anything. So
Right.
thank you for sharing that. That was really, really powerful. Yeah. I'm sorry. And I cut Lara off, jumped right in there. So
Oh no,
I'll
that's okay.
turn it over.
we I mean, because we have similar kind of no, not so much backgrounds, I guess, but just like what we preach. um and I think it's interesting because we can both really relate to burnout too. And I was going to ask Jaci, do you find that people who tend to be the burnout people who are trying to transition into a healthier way of being, are they typically your more high achieving people?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because you always want to be doing something, you always want to be achieving something, you always want to be kind of climbing that ladder. And
Mm-hmm.
like, I still find myself having to take a step back, because I feel like people who haven't been burnt out before are more likely to burn out again. And it can be in different aspects of your life. But I just tend to go, I find the people that I have met who have been burnt out before go hard at something and then they burn out it. And then they find something else that's absolutely amazing and they go hard at it and then they burn out. So it's almost as if I don't believe in balance, but it's almost as if someone cannot find balance between different aspects of their life.
Yeah. Well, that's super interesting. Tell us, because we all hear about like, oh, it's all about balance. Tell me more about, not, you said you don't believe in balance, so there must be
Mhm.
something there. So I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so I don't believe in balance because I can't be a good coach, I can't be a good athlete, I can't be a good wife, I can't be a good daughter all at the same time. So I have to really dedicate, like, so for an example, Grandma's Marathon in Duluth was 2 weekends ago. I was not a good wife that weekend. I slept in my car in a parking lot at the aid station, and I did not talk to anyone else except my athletes. I was there strictly for them, and that's all I did. I drove up and down the marathon course to figure out where I needed to be for them and how the route was going to be, and that's all I did. But did I text my husband at all? Like, I told him where I was sleeping so that he knew where I was, but that's it. And then as soon as I got home on Sunday, then I didn't do anything else except garden and spend time with him and the dogs and everything. So I think I'm kind of like, when it comes to work, I like to block my work, and I feel like that's most efficient and effective in being focused in what your main focus is right now. Because if I try to do everything at once, I'm just scatterbrained, and the quality of any of that work is subpar. So if I can say, okay, these are my priorities, this is what I'm focused on, then that's what I'm going to focus on. And then the next day, what am I focusing on? So I just don't believe that you can be everything at once. You can try, but I don't think anyone's going to respect any part of what you're doing because it's not really there.
I mean, to me, that is super refreshing to hear, because I think especially women, we're known as to be good multitaskers, and I think we naturally do multitask or task stacking or what is that thing? There's something Amy calls it, something stacking.
Habit stacking.
Oh,
Habit stacking. Yeah, which to me is the same as multitasking. But I love the idea that you're not saying you have to balance everything all at once, because then it's like the jack of all trades, you're master of none.
Mm-hmm.
So you're focusing on a specific task, you're getting that focus 100%. And then when you're done with that, you're being present for something else. So your full presence is required no matter what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. Like it's like blocking, like you said, the blocking of, this is what I'm focused on in this time period, but then I'm going to refocus and have a whole different goal for this next time period.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And the whole being present and being mindful, I mean, that's totally my jam. I love all that. I feel like, yeah, I've had to give my permission to rest, if you will, so many times since I opened a business, because the whole reason I did it was because I wanted to provide a space for people to come and rest, find rest. And then I get there and I'm like this, type A overachiever personality. And I'm just like, okay, it's Sunday and I'm open, so I like to work that day because it's only 3 hours. But I'm like, I got to be doing something. And I was like, no, I don't have to be doing something. It's Sunday afternoon. I've got great clients and I've got this little time where they're busy and they're doing their session. I'm just going to sit and meditate or listen to music or draw. That sounds kind of like what you are offering your clients a little bit, is a new way to look at things.
I think so. Amy was in a mindset group that I did with another coach, and one of the activities that we did was to demonstrate how hard multitasking is. And we asked everyone.
Remember this. Yeah, you should.
We asked everyone to write the ABCs on a line, and then we asked everyone to write 1 through 26 on a line, and we timed them. And I don't remember the times off the top of my head, but the third task we asked everyone to do was to write A1, B2. And you had to do that for the entire alphabet, and 1 through 26. And it was like it took you, actually, I don't even want to say a number, but it took you significantly longer to write, to alternate letters and numbers than it did to collectively write 1 through 26 and A through Z. And that was just to demonstrate, like, as women, we're like doing the dishes, but when you start doing the dishes, you see something else that needs to be done. And then that leads you to the laundry room, and that leads you to picking stuff up. And you actually have never finished the dishes after like an hour of doing stuff around the house. So I think that goes back to like focusing on like, okay, just stop, take a breath, collect yourself, and go back to what's most important and what your priority is right now, and do that before you move on.
Oh my gosh, I just did that this morning. I was like, oh, Michelle, just stop already. Like exactly what you're talking about. And I was like, this is just ridiculous. Like, just stop. Because I was like from one thing to another oh my God, I forgot to do that. Oh, do that. I need to do that. And then I'm like, okay, this is insane. Like, I'm standing here in the kitchen with like, whoa, and literally accomplishing, really not finishing any of the tasks, right? Like, they were
Yep.
all just, I'm like, okay, this clearly has to stop. And I just wanted to comment, you were talking about the the blocking and how you you know you, you aren't doing, like, you're not being a good coach and a good wife at the same time, and that concept.
Mhm.
And someone had said to me years ago, like, when you're, especially when you're younger and you're like, oh, I want to be a writer and I want to be an actress and I want to, swim, the English Channel and run a marathon. Like, you have all these things. And somebody had said to me, I'm not saying you can't do all those things, but you can't do them all at the same time. And
Mhm.
I thought that was such a beautiful way to look at your life. Like, instead of, oh, if I do this thing, I have to give it up forever, right? So if I'm going to be a really good wife and mom, let's say, that means I can't be a writer, or I can't, you know, and the truth is you can't do everything all at once, even in the big picture, right? Forget about just the little picture in a day. So
Mhm.
I just feel like that allows so much freedom or permission, as Lara said. Like, when you think about it as not just, I have to do all these things and I have to do them all today or this week or this month or this year even, and that there is space in a life for lots more than the one thing you're focused on in this moment or in this day. So I loved that. That was really a good point. And Amy and I have talked about blocking,
Mm,
work
yeah.
blocking especially, and Amy's really gotten good at that. So I admire that about Amy. She does
It's
that
a
well.
work in progress. And I was going to ask you guys if you've read the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. Have any of you guys read that book? It's awesome. I definitely highly
No.
recommend it. He actually just came out with a new book. It's called Slow Productivity,
Yeah,
I
I
think it
just
is.
downloaded that on my Audible. Like, I literally
Yeah.
just started listening to that. You know who else talks about some of that stuff too is it Dan Coe? Like Koe?
Oh, I remember you've
The
talked
Art
about
of
him before.
Focus or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got some really cool thoughts around that too. I
Yeah.
really
The,
appreciate that people are looking at that. But the thing I don't see are, because those are both men, right?
mm,
I look for, like, who are the women who are doing this and talking about this, because we traditionally are the ones balancing the home, the kids, the work, so I if anybody finds a woman who's writing about this topic, I would love to read that too. Yeah.
yeah, and I do think that that Deep Work book was kind of a game changer for me. I read it probably 2 or 3 years ago. Because I too was like all over the place, like jumping from one thing to another. I'm like, this is craziness. Um, and that book was a huge help for me. It is a man. So until somebody comes up with a woman, that's a good suggestion for now. Michelle and I have talked about this. Like, I literally have like timers set on my phone so that, I mean, I can override it if I really need to, but I know that I'm much more productive in the morning. So, like, when I first come into the office in the morning, my phone is usually somewhere else, like, doesn't like ding. The whole notifications and all of that stuff. I don't know how people stand it when stuff is just like dinging at them all the time, and how they get anything done. And I know, like, in the morning, that's when I set aside my time to really like focus on stuff. And even Michelle and I will talk, like, if we need to catch up about something or whatever, we'll do it in the afternoon because I know that that's like my least productive time. Um, so yeah, it's that book. That book was definitely a huge help for me. So
Mm. Jackie, I've got, since you're in the running space and sort of the health and wellness and fitness, I am not a runner. Um, so for folks that are not Amy, not going to go out and do an ultra marathon and run lots of miles, and how, so for like the normal human, or maybe normal is the wrong word,
Thanks,
for the,
Michelle.
I'm saying so that
For,
wasn't meant as a negative.
For my not
for
normal
us
friend.
average folk. How about average folk like us?
Yes, for the average folks, like when you're working with a client, and I guess if they come to you, they're coming because they want a running coach. But if you were to, coach like walking, like let's say you were a walking coach, how would you approach somebody who's coming to you and is like, look, what do I do? How do I start to just feel better, be more fit? Like, what are your top 3 things that you think people, other than rest, because we just, really dug into that. So what would the other few things be that you'd be like, this is what you need to focus on?
I think the first thing is you have to have, and we all hear about the talk about your why, but you really have to have a reason or meaning or like an emotion behind it, because anything that you start when it's new, it's exciting, but for some people, after a couple days, that habit falls off, that excitement falls off. So if you can associate walking with an emotion, a reason, something bigger than yourself, then that's going to help you be consistent with that and develop that habit. But developing a habit and a routine is one of the first things that I do with anyone that I work with. Is like, when are you most motivated? When do you have the most energy during the day? Because that's when we want to align that specific walking with when you're feeling your best. And how can we create a routine so that you do that every day or every other day? Obviously, when it comes to running, we're not having someone do that every single day, but walking could be something. But again, it really depends on who the individual is. Some people get hooked on the numbers and in routine, so that may not be the best thing for them. If I say, okay, we need to do this every day, it may be better to do something every other day or 3 out of 5 days of the work week, and then on the weekends or something. Just because that routine can be powerful, but it can also be a negative thing if you get out of that habit, and it can be really hard to get back into it. And then the third thing would be figuring out who can support you and who you can surround yourself with to kind of inspire you to continue on with whatever you're doing. And that, again, depends on who the individual is. We don't want comparison to come into play, but we want the inspiration to be there. So for runners, like when I started running, I was not on Instagram. I really didn't even know any other runners. It was just myself. And I would love to go back there. I would love to go back to not seeing what anyone is running, what pace they're running, what workouts they're doing. And I would love to be that new runner again. But I know that some people are motivated by that as well, to see that potential. I just think it depends on what season of your life you're in, what you've experienced, what motivates and inspires you, and kind of the other things that you're working through. So again, my answer for everything is pretty much it depends. But I would say surround yourself with others, have a larger like emotion or reason behind it, and create those routines and those habits. And you can habit stack it too, but Amy's probably talked about that.
I love that answer, because that was almost the same answer that I would expect from my motivation question, and I love that it depends. And to me, that's the holistic approach that you talked about. So maybe talk a little bit more about how that holistic view, like how did you come into working with that? How do you work with new clients when it comes to holistic? It sounds like you're really getting behind like the emotion and the why, and the goals that they want to reach, and obviously there's a lot more to it than just getting out there and creating the habit of running. There's like you said, nutrition and rest and routine and all of that. So maybe talk a little bit more about how that evolved for you.
I think it really started because I started working on nutrition and strength training before I started running. I ran like my first half marathon, and it felt, well, I wouldn't say that I started that stuff before I really got into running. I ran a half marathon without really doing any of the other stuff. I was just running, and I had the worst experience ever. And I knew that I could do better if I changed some things. So I really dialed in on nutrition and strength training. And that made all the difference. But I also was working on mindset and a few of those other things. At the time, I had just finished up my master's degree, so sleep was low. And that was one thing that I incorporated again, was trying to get in that sleep before the CPA studying started. So just seeing and experiencing how some of these little things impacted my running, but also just my overall life. That was really eye-opening to me. And at the time, I had just gotten on Instagram and I didn't see any of that being talked about. So that's really what I talked about, was the nutrition and the lifting and what impact that could have on running itself. And then from there, I think it was just all the little experiences that I had and that I saw others experiencing that really was like, gosh, everyone is different. Everyone is in a different season of life. Everyone has experienced different things that I can't really say, like, this is exactly what everyone should do. Like, yes, everyone in general should work on nutrition and fueling their bodies well and lifting weights and being active and resting, but you can't just throw that at someone because it doesn't mean anything. So that's kind of where the holistic approach came to be, was really getting to know each individual and what they've experienced, what they're experiencing now, what their goals are, and trying to figure out what's going to work best for them. Because a lot of times there's a couple things, or there's that one root cause that impacts everything else. And if they can recognize that, everything else improves, not just in their running, but in their daily lives.
Yeah, absolutely. That really resonates. If I were going to be running, I would be like, she's my coach.
Yeah. She should be, Lara. She should be. She should be everybody's
Believe it
coach,
or not,
as far as I'm
I used
concerned.
to run a little bit, and Amy was
You
motivational for
did.
me back then. Yeah, I did. So
We ran at the brewery.
yes,
The beer, let's face it,
we
I
ran
was not the
for beer.
motivation. The beer at the end was the motivation.
Running for beer. Yeah, always a good
I
motivator.
will have to say, though,
Not at my age.
Amy's energy is contagious.
Yeah.
And her goals are also contagious, because
Are they?
That's terrifying. I don't know about that.
because when I started really getting into racing half marathons and marathons, again, my husband said, you're not gonna, and I had a few friends in town that were running 100 milers, ultra distances, and he said, well, you're not gonna do that. And to me, that was like,
Green light.
you can't say that. Like, you can't tell me what I can and can't do. And I feel like every time that Amy and I have a call, I'm like on ultra sign up. Like, oh my gosh, which races are by me? Which races can I drive to? Like, what could I actually do? And that's like really how I got into the 50K was I had been training for a marathon and I couldn't really make one work. And I found this 50K. And I would not have even considered it if I didn't know Amy. Like, I would still, I don't even know what I would be doing. But now I'm like signed up for this crazy, endless race. And again, that's because every time I get off a call with Amy, I find myself Googling these races that I don't even know exist. And then like I'm sending her these messages about like, well, maybe I could do this one. She's like, well, what about this? I'm like, really? But
I have no idea. I have no idea I affected that.
I probably have, well, and okay, I'm someone who also doesn't close tabs. So right now in my phone, I have 79 tabs opened up in Google Chrome. And the last 10 of them are all ultra races. So
that is so funny.
Well, I love that there's like I love the coach student or coach client back and forth that goes on because that's really cool.
Well, okay, and then before Amy did her 82 miles, we sat down. What did we talk for almost 2 hours?
Oh, yeah, it was a really long time. It was awesome.
It was. I was so excited. I like created a spreadsheet for myself. I'm like, what am I doing right now? But I'm just going with it. And I think again, that's where like the inspiration can come into play of surrounding yourself with others unintentionally with exciting things that, again, it's also part of that type A overachiever of, okay, I've done the marathon, like what's next? What's that next bigger thing? Done the 50K, what's that next bigger thing? But that's what keeps it exciting. And that's kind of what prevents that burnout. Like burnout can always come into that, but you kind of have to figure out how to work with it. Like, am I doing too much? Am I going too hard at it? Or am I just trying to figure out my peace within all of it? Which is
so
hard.
Does your husband let you do what you want now?
Well, I just do. I just do. That's one thing. Maybe that's a fault of my own, but I just do things. I
shouldn't have said let either. Let. Maybe he's be careful he doesn't use a reverse psychology on you. Yeah. You should run 100-miler. Go for it.
Yeah, well, he's not excited about my race in August. The kind of endless concept. I asked him if he wanted to come crew for me, and he said it was a dumb idea.
I feel like my husband gave up on telling me stuff was dumb years ago. Like, he's just learned now that if I say, he's just like, oh, okay, dear. Have fun.
Good luck.
That's the best support you can expect, I think.
But Jackie's husband has now become a runner himself, right? So you've obviously rubbed off on him too.
Yeah, he's not my favorite client. Like, it makes me appreciate Amy even more because she does what I tell her to do. He doesn't always do what I tell him to do. So I'm also learning in those aspects that I have to figure out other ways to work with those clients, which is good. It's all a learning experience, but yeah, he has really taken the approach of running to get in. He's a big hunter, so to get into shape for hunting season. So he kind of has that bigger why behind it, which has been nice. So he's training for his first half marathon it's July at the end of the month.
That's great.
Yeah.
He doesn't always enjoy it. He didn't enjoy our run yesterday, but he still does it.
Does he help you? Does he help hone your skills on dealing with difficult clients?
Oh, I don't know. Because everyone is so different. And I feel like sometimes he challenges me on purpose and he knows that he's kind of pushing some buttons. Whereas if I'm having a conversation with a client, like they're not intentionally doing that. So I think it's just because I know that he's actually doing that.
A whole different dynamic.
Yes.
Michelle's shaking her head. Maybe Billy could hire Jaci for running coach for hunting.
I don't
his
think
hunting season.
I don't think his body would hold up to the running part, but he is really conscious about his fitness in the woods during hunting season. And he will comment on, how either good he's doing or how, hard it was or so he definitely, it is a real thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
Does
hard
his
to
yoga
drag,
too.
right? Yeah, he does yoga. He is a yoga guy. And that's made a huge difference. I mean, you start to get a little older like we are, and your body doesn't let you get away with as much, and if you got to drag a deer out of the woods for 3 miles and you're the only one there, like you better have a little fitness behind you or that's not going to end well. So he'll appreciate that. He listens to our podcast. So hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
You're not
Hi,
the only
Billy. He's not in your office right now.
No, he is not. He has gone and done whatever it is he goes and does. So, yeah. But he'll appreciate that, Jaci. Thank you for sharing that about your husband.
Okay, well, we could certainly talk to you forever, Jaci. I know that you and I can certainly have some pretty long conversations. So you add Michelle and Lara into this, and we could go on for hours. But we certainly want to be respectful of your time, and I'm sure you have plenty of things to do. But I will just say that if anybody is looking for a running coach, Jaci is the absolute best, and I just adore her. I've been working with her for about 1.5 years now, and I just think that she's just the best. So, Jaci, if people are want to find out more about you or get in contact with you to possibly talk about coaching, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you first of all for that. My Instagram is where I can be found most of the time, and it's jaci.wilson.runs. Jaci is Jaci, and my website is jaciwilsonruns.com, and that's where I just have a bunch of information, blog posts, and everything on kind of just the holistic side of running and coaching.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and they can, I think you still have this available, like schedule just a kind of a little discovery call or whatever you want to call it to see if it would be a good fit for anybody. So yeah, again, can't recommend her enough. And thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. We may have to have you back back again because we have more questions. But
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much.
all right, thank you.